Hey there, you look like you're having fun playing that game on your Switch. Did you buy it digitally? Marvelous! I'm sure you'll have no problems playing it on multiple Switches. Nintendo is very forward-thinking when it comes to digital purchases, you know, just like Google. Why, son, what's the problem? Do you mean to tell me that you can't play the same game on a different console at the same time as the other console you own? Not to worry, there's always a workaround.
While the Switch is an amazing system which everyone seems to be in love with, it's not without some drawbacks. Being a modern system, games are available both physically and digitally, and if you choose to go the digital route, you may find that Nintendo is not as generous with their digital offerings as some other game companies. A few years ago, I purchased and downloaded Flower for the PlayStation 3 since my roommate really wanted to play it and paid me the $10 to buy it even though he didn't have his own PSN account. To my surprise, I was able to download the game at no additional expense to both my PS4 and Vita when the game was ported to those systems, so it's interesting to me that Nintendo is not nearly as generous as their rival Sony in this case. If you try to play the same game on two different Switches that use your account, you may encounter a message that prevents you from playing the game on one of the systems. But through some experimentation of my own, I found a workaround that works every time. Before we get started, we need to cover some groundwork so that you have a better understanding of how Nintendo servers want to be sure you are not playing the same game on two different systems at the same time. But if you'd rather get to the meat of the issue, skip ahead to the time on screen. The Switch you use to set up your console becomes your primary console. This will let the console have full access to any title you download, as you should expect. Once you add your account to another Switch, that's when things get complicated. We'll call this system secondary to differentiate it from your primary Switch. You will still be able to download any title you've paid for on your primary Switch, but before the game will launch, the secondary Switch will connect to the internet to make sure your primary Switch is not playing the game you've chosen to launch on the secondary Switch. If it is, then you will get this message on your secondary Switch. Also, if you are playing the game on your secondary system and you decide to launch it on your primary system, you may get this message and get kicked out of the game, though it won't close out of it, so there's no need to worry about losing your progress. So just a quick checklist before we get started. You will need to buy a game, sign into the same account on both Switches, download the game on both Switches, and find out which Switch is primary. Once you've done that, we're ready to get started. Let's leave the primary system alone for now. In sleep mode, we'll be using Resident Evil 4 in this example, so I will go ahead and launch it on my Switch Lite, which I have set as my secondary system. It will check online to make sure the game is not being played on my primary Switch, which is currently in sleep mode, so we're all good there. This does mean that if you don't have an internet connection for your secondary Switch, you will not be able to launch any digital games that are shared with the primary Switch. This is an unfortunate barrier with no workaround to my knowledge. Once we have the game running on the secondary system, we do not want to launch the game on our primary Switch yet. We do have a couple of ways to launch the game without interfering with the secondary system's game. Turn on airplane mode on the secondary system, or turn on airplane mode on the primary system. This second option works since the primary system will not care if you are connected to the internet or not. It will launch games all the same. We don't want to connect it to the internet since the moment it does, Nintendo servers will see the game running on more than one system at a time and will suspend the game on the secondary Switch. Unless you have disconnected the secondary Switch from the internet once you have launched the game using airplane mode, in which case you'll also be fine. And there you go! Resident Evil 4 is running on both my Switches. I can put them both into sleep mode and come back whenever I want to. If I need to access the internet on one of these systems, I just need to be sure the other Switch is either in sleep mode or airplane mode. You just need to avoid having both Switches connected to the internet at the same time to keep the game running on both systems. Now I know this method is not perfect. If you have both a Switch and a Switch Lite like I do and you want to pull this off, you may want to have your Switch Lite as the primary instead, since the primary system doesn't care if you're online to launch a game. And since your regular Switch can stay at home, it should always have an internet connection that it needs to launch a game as the secondary system. Otherwise, you won't be able to change which game you're playing on the go if the Switch you have with you is secondary and you don't have an internet connection on hand to launch other games. It's up to you. Hopefully I've given you clear enough instructions to help you avoid buying a game more than once, but if you do have any further questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. Do you know someone who has more than one Switch and is looking to manage their digital library? Share this video with them. This is Steven with Level 1 Sword. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to keep on top of the videos, definitely take a sec to subscribe. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon if you want to follow me across the internet. Level 1 Sword also has a weekly podcast, so give it a listen.